Hello, future Rossies and pre-med explorers. This is Milena Garcia, your host for Ross University Checking the Pulse, a pre-med podcast. This is our mini podcast featuring facts and information about our medical program, insights from current students, and tips from practicing physicians. Each week, this broadcast will be broken down in small episodes, focusing on one aspect of our program, also having guests talk about their own experiences as students and as doctors. Welcome back, future Rossies! As you know by now, our graduates are eligible to practice in all 50 states and all Canadian provinces. In this episode, we will highlight RUSM in Texas and hear from our Associate Director of Admissions in Dallas, Sarah Vasudevan, and Dr. Valerie Serrano, class of 2019.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us for another episode. This week we are going to focus on Texas. It's one of our biggest states, along with New York, New Jersey, Florida, California, and Illinois. With me today is my colleague Sarah Vasudevan, Associate Director of Admissions in Texas, and Dr. Valerie Serrano, class of 2019. Let's take a moment to have them introduce themselves. Sarah, how are you?
Hi, Milena. Thank you so much for having me today. As you mentioned, my name is Sarah Vasudevan, and I am the Associate Director of Admissions over Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. It is my pleasure to be here today.
Dr. Serrano, thank you for joining us. Let's hear a little bit about you.
Thanks for having me. My name is Valerie Serrano. I'm born and raised in Houston, Texas. I actually did my undergrad at University of Houston, graduated Ross in 2019, and now I'm a second-year family medicine resident at University of Texas Health Science in San Antonio.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you both for joining me today. So today we're going to be talking about Texas, and Texas is a huge state, and they have many of their own medical schools. In fact, last time I checked, I believe there were 14 medical schools between the MD and the DO programs there. And however, even with so many schools there, they're still not able to accommodate all their medical school applicants. Sarah, how do you think we can help the Texas applicants to pursue their dreams to become doctors?
As you mentioned, with there being over 14 medical universities just in Texas, not even discussing how many there are nationwide, there are so many qualified applicants that are just not given an opportunity. Sometimes it's simply just because of testing scores and/or GPAs, and there's more to an applicant than just those variables. And here at Ross, we give that opportunity to our students. We give them the opportunity to share their stories with us. Life happens. You know, sometimes we cause life, and sometimes life just hands us those wonderful deck of cards there, and we have to roll with that. And at Ross, I've had the pleasure of interviewing so many amazing students who have come from their first-generation college students, first-generation students to pursue medicine, and sometimes there's just a lack of guidance that has resulted in them not being able to apply to some of these U.S. institutions. And so here at Ross, we give that opportunity, and I'm excited to be part of that journey.
Tell us a little bit about the interview process in Texas.
Yeah, so recently our interview process has changed. Previously, we used to do all in-person interviews, but we have moved to a virtual platform for our students, though we still allow for in-person interviews should a student wish to do so. We are really trying to accommodate and be flexible with schedules. We know life is busy, and so giving the opportunity to use remote technology to see each other face-to-face just as we are today, and conducting those interviews is the preferred status at this point. And so we have moved to that platform.
Dr. Serrano, was this the case for you?
Yeah, so just background, I agree everyone has their unique circumstances. And for myself, it was that my parents were retired by the time I went to college. So I was balancing college, a full-time job, and then trying to mix the MCAT. It just did not work for me. And I actually interviewed in Dallas for my Ross interview, and I just made a fun weekend trip out of it.
And this is a typical case that we hear often, right, Sarah, when students have to work full-time or even work part-time while attending full-time in school. And we understand everybody has their stories. So that's why we're here. We're here to listen to everyone's stories. And in fact, we have, Sarah, about 355 practicing physicians in Texas?
Yeah, they just recently announced that we've added some additions to the state of Texas, so we're very excited to have that many practicing physicians in the state of Texas alone. But yes, you're correct, 355 now.
And counting, right?
Yes, and counting, of course.
So for everyone listening, we did cover in previous episodes, we talked about our MD program and the application process. Our graduates are eligible to practice in all 50 states, of course, Texas included, but there are some specific things that we have to do in order to be able to practice in Texas. Sarah, can you cover some of the differences, please?
Yeah, one of the main differences in Texas is there's actually a law that states as an international medical graduate, students are not eligible to complete their core rotations in the state of Texas, but they are eligible to complete elective rotations, residency, and license here in the state of Texas. So that's the biggest difference at this point. We are hopeful that things will change soon, which will allow for us to have a clinical track here. But at this point, unfortunately, our students are not able to do core rotations, but are able to come back and do elective rotations, residency, and license.
Dr. Serrano, where did you do your clinical rotations?
So I actually did all of my core rotations in South Miami, Florida, and I chose to stay there as well for my electives. I only went to New York for a sub-I, and that was during my 4th year, but I never went back to Texas for any electives.
Tell us what sub-I mean.
So I did a practicing internship for my family medicine rotation before I applied to family medicine.
Dr. Serrano, let's stay with you. Tell us why you chose RUS.
So I actually had a really great colleague in college that had gone to RUS, and I was not familiar, so I messaged her about it, and she just spoke very highly of her clinical experience. So I applied, and then I was accepted.
And how is she doing?
She's doing great. She's actually in Texas as well, finishing her 3rd year of family medicine. Haven't spoken to her recently, but I think it's just her being an upper level.
And how are you doing with our program?
RUS actually helped because their education met the standards that Texas required for the application. So as we know, Texas is competitive, in whatever we're looking at. And so RUS helped me check those boxes before I applied for residency. And then it helped because I had multiple interviews in Texas.
Sarah, what kind of support do we offer for Texas students?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually have a dedicated staff member and licensing team there to ensure that all of our students are able to practice where they wish to do so. Texas having some specific requirements requires a little bit more care and dedication, and so our team is diligent in making sure that our program is up to standard and that we are allowing our students to meet all of those requirements. So I'm glad that Dr. Serrano has had the opportunity to experience that, and I hope that we will continue to have more students go through that diligent process.
And Dr. Serrano, back to you. How was the Texas interview process for you?
It was a lot of fun. So what's great is that no matter all of the interviews, I still had over 50% in Texas of invites. So I not only was able to come back to my home state, I was actually able to kind of pick and choose what region I wanted to go to. I had multiple options. And it was always a warm feeling because a lot of the places that I interviewed at already had RUS students match as faculty members. So not only was I interviewed by some RUS alumni, I also was able to meet some that had graduated before.
During one of our previous conversations, you brought up a loan repayment program. And I know that is, of course, always in the students, medical students' minds. Can you cover a little bit more? I thought that was a great point that you made, and I would like our listeners to know about this program as well.
Absolutely. So as we know, any medical school tuition can be very daunting to think about as you're trying to go into medical school. So just know it's completely worth it. And at the end, there's multiple programs that can help. So the program that I chose was the Public Service Loan Forgiveness, and it's sponsored through the federal student loans where we received most of our loans. And so what it is you can start right out of medical school in your first year of residency, and it's an income-driven repayment plan, and you'll just do a set amount of repayments, and then the rest is forgiven. So it's beneficial because it counts your 3 years of residency, and since the payments will be really low, it's just a nice way to knock out a lot of payments.
That's incredible. And everyone listening, reach out, search, do some research on these loan repayment programs. They're out there. In fact, also, Ross, because we are worried about the debt amount the students take on, we offer several scholarships. Please look on our website, medical.rosu.edu, under the scholarship tab, so you can see all the other programs that we offer as far as scholarships as well. I wanted to take a moment and thank you both for being here. What about any last minute suggestions or advice, Sarah V?
Yeah, my biggest statement of advice to students would be just don't give up on yourself. You have a dream of becoming a physician. It may have, life may have taken you the long way to get here, but there are still opportunities available to you. And I'm here to help you. Let Ross be the avenue for you to fulfill your dream of becoming a physician.
And where can our listeners get a hold of you?
Yeah, I may be reached via email at svasudevan@rosu.edu, and I am also available by text or call at 530-848-0094.
Dr. Serrano, any recommendations for our future Rossies?
I say, if your dream is to become a doctor, never give up. Myself, it was just a dream, and Ross made it come true. So if it's your dream, stick to it and do what it takes.
Thank you. Thank you both. I appreciate you taking your time. Thank you to our listeners here, and we'll be back with our next episode next week. Thank you very much. Bye, ladies.
Thank you for listening to Ross University Checking the Pulse, a pre-med podcast. This is Milena Garcia, your host. This podcast is made for you, so let me know what topics you want us to cover on future episodes. You can send me your comments, feedbacks, and requests to mgarcia@rosu.edu. Definitely follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube channel at Ross Med School, or on Facebook. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, I am working my way to 5 stars, so remember to send me your comments and let me know your ideas. If you're on Spotify, remember to click on the follow button to get our future episodes. All right, see you future Rossies and Pre-Med Explorers next week. This mini podcast is edited and produced by our in-house guru, Chris King.